Good evening. The Prime Minister has delivered a desperately needed boost for South Australia, confirming our state will be at the centre of a $40 billion plan to build new Navy ships. He's promised the majority of more than 2,000 jobs will be in Adelaide, but admits workers will be axed in the years before the project begins.
Having installed it as a centre of Navy shipbuilding for years to come, Tony Abbott toured the ASC at Osborne this afternoon. He started his day at a special cabinet meeting in Adelaide, at which the deal was discussed.
This is, if you like, the first prize for South Australia, a continuous build of naval surface ships.
Before the PM fronted the cameras to make the formal announcement.
What we are announcing today is basically a fleet build here in Australia.
Under the government's shipbuilding plan, around 2,500 jobs will be guaranteed long term, the majority of those in South Australia. Nearly $40 billion to be spent on building patrol vessels from 2018 and then frigates from 2020, as part of an $89 billion investment in the Navy over the next 20 years.
This will end the boom and bust which has occurred in terms of naval shipbuilding in this country.
This is a message of hope and confidence to the people of our country, to the people of this state.
The Premier welcoming the plan.
It means that the workers in this industry, in the longer term, will have a future for themselves in an industry, not just a project.
But Jay Weatherall's federal Labor colleagues were questioning the PM's motives.
What we're seeing today is a circus in South Australia to protect Tony Abbott's job and Christopher Pyne's job.
And even Tony Abbott concedes jobs will still be lost from the industry before the new plan kicks in.
It should mean that at no stage do the total number of jobs in naval shipbuilding in Australia drop below about 1,000.
And still there is no guarantee South Australia will win the even bigger deal, future submarine building here at ASC.
Mr Abbott must keep to his promise he made before the last election to build the submarines in Australia.
Rory McLaren, 9 News.
And the Prime Minister joined us now live from the city. Mr Abbott, thank you for your time. We've just heard Bill Shorten call on you to honour the promise that submarines also be built locally. Will you do that?
Well, Brendan, what I've announced today is that starting in 2018, we will have $40 billion of work, 2,500 jobs guaranteed largely for South Australia. That's today's announcement. Obviously, in the months ahead, I'll have more to say about submarines as well. But Adelaide, South Australia and our nation has had a very important announcement today, and there'll be more important announcements to make in the months ahead.
Can you put a figure on just how many new local jobs will the shipbuilding project deliver? Unfortunately,
because the former Labor government scandalously neglected some of these decisions, the numbers of local jobs will go down before they start to go up. But at no stage will the total number of naval shipbuilding jobs here in Australia dip below about 1,000, and from 2020 onwards they'll go up again quite dramatically to about 2,500 ongoing, permanent, good, secure jobs, because this is not just shipbuilding. This is fleet building. This is a historic announcement for the first time an Australian government committing to build here in Australia not just a ship or a class of ships, but all our significant surface ships.
Now, you have said you want to help South Australia become more prosperous. Can we expect more from your local government?
Well, plainly, we are working well with the South Australian state government. We had some difficulties early in our term, but I think Premier Weatherall and myself, we're working well together. I think you saw that at the COAG Leaders Retreat a week or so back, and I'm looking forward to a constructive partnership with the state government on naval shipbuilding. I'm looking forward to a constructive partnership with the state government on road building, because I think that's what people expect. They want their elected members of parliament, regardless of what party they belong to work together in the national interest and in the state interest.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister. We do appreciate your time.
Thanks, Brendan.
The shipbuilding pledge has received only a lukewarm reception from industry leaders at the Osborne Workers Union. While they've welcomed the $40 billion boost, they're worried it's a consolation prize and submarine construction will be sent offshore.
As they arrived this morning, ASC workers were, for the most part, optimistic.
Well, might be enough to save my job.
Many hopeful today's pledge by the Prime Minister will deliver a new dawn for shipbuilding in South Australia.
That's great news.
Fantastic.
But the union fears the good news about the $40 billion local Navy ships build is a precursor to bad news about the $50 billion submarines contract.
This is a softening up that the frigates come here and that the submarines will go where he's already, we believe, done the handshake.
The union says the submarines deal is the linchpin to Australia's shipbuilding industry, but it fears that deal is already stitched up offshore and the frigates a consolation prize. And a prize that won't be delivered for several years. The employment valley of death will worsen, with more than 1,000 ASC jobs to go before the new building begins in 2018.
There's no need to lose that workforce. We just need to get rid of the cumbersome bureaucracy around acquiring ships and get on with the projects as quick as possible.
Workers too hopeful projects will be brought forward further and that Tony Abbott will make good on his election promise to build the submarines at Osborne.
Well, I can't see why we shouldn't build the subs here. We've got the skills. We've proved it here that we can build stuff like that, so we should be getting all the work really in Australia.
Lauren Barker, 9 News.